I'm Edward Coleman, the presenter for this webinar today, and the purpose is to address common issues encountered during administrative reviews and to promote overall program improvement. The presentation is going to kind of flow as the administrative review would. We're going to cover Performance Standard 1, then Performance Standard 2, resource management, general areas, and then questions at the end. If you have any questions, you can type them in at the beginning whenever they come up, but they won't be answered until the end. So Performance Standard 1 is certification and benefit issuance. Eligibility determinations for residents in RCCIs are a little different than for the normal school districts. You have two types of residents. You have day students, and then you have households of one. Day students are children who attend but do not reside within the RCCI. They are still considered members of their primary household, and their eligibility is determined using a household application or through direct certification. Households of one are children who reside within an RCCI and they're considered a household of one. Residents classified as a household of one use their income to determine their eligibility for the food and nutrition service programs that are offered at the RCCI they attend. The eligibility documentation sheet. Residents within the RCCI must have their eligibility status documented, and this can be done in one of the following ways. You can fill out an application for each resident in your facility. Or you can complete an eligibility documentation sheet. Just as a note, day students must have an application on file or documentation of their direct certification status. And for those of you that may not have ever dealt with direct certification, this would be their family qualified for SNAP, TANF benefits, or participate in the FDIPR program. The eligibility documentation sheet has requirements. It must have the child's name. It must have personal income received by the child's date of birth, their date of admission to your facility, their date of release, and this can be an average for the length of stay for residents in your facility. It doesn't have to be exact at first, but when they do leave, you should update that section to reflect that. An official's title and the contact information. Or let me clarify that. When you find out their date of release, you should update that information on the sheet. And this is considered this is a document that you would update as you got new kiddos into the facility and as they left. Income. Income is defined as any money that is received on a recurring basis, and for residents in an RCCI, income would be money earned from a full or regular part-time employment, or income that's personally received by the child while in residence at the RCCI. And this includes SSI survivor benefits, regular disbursements from a trust fund, anything of that nature where the money comes in on a regular, consistent basis. If you have kids that receive money, you have to have an income, well, you have to have an income statement. I put two examples up here. The first one is if your RCCI does not allow any money. You have to have this statement. It has to be signed and dated by the admitting official, and this has to be part of each kid's admissions packet. So it says you do not allow any children to have money. And then it states all our children are wards of the court. They are not permitted to earn, receive, or retain any money while in custody. The official would sign and date that. That would become part of the kid's admission packet. Example 2, if you do allow kids to have money, you have to ask, does the child have income from work, either full or part-time? Does this child have income from personal sources such as SSI survivors benefits or a regular disbursement from a trust fund or other similar sources? Then you have to have some area where you can indicate no or yes, and if yes, you have to indicate the amount they receive and the frequency. And the frequency would be how often they get paid if it's from work, every 2 weeks, every week, bi-monthly, once a month. And if it's a disbursement, how often that disbursement is or how often Social Security would be paying them. And that would be signed and dated by the official. While in the field, I always get asked, why do we have to have an income statement? The food and nutrition programs are income driven, and what that means is participation in these programs is based on the income level. There are guidelines that dictate how much money an individual or family can make to be considered eligible for free meal benefits or reduced price meal benefits. This generally doesn't apply to day students because they have an application and we're going to know what the income is, but it gets a little tricky when you deal with the household of one. So if you have a kid who is a household of one and they have a job and they have income coming in, that income would be used to determine if they are eligible for free or reduced price meal benefits. And so that's the necessity of the income statement. From our side, we have to ensure that meals are only being served to kids who qualify for that level, free meals or reduced price meals. And on your side, the income statement is kind of your due diligence saying we are ensuring that meal benefits are only being given to kids who meet the income eligibility guidelines. Meal counting and claiming. So the purpose of monitoring meal counting and claiming is to ensure that the processes you use to count, consolidate, and claim meals are compliant with program requirements. Reimbursable meal must be counted correctly and recorded at the point of service, and the counting and claiming system must yield an accurate claim for reimbursement. The first thing you have to be able to do is recognize what constitutes a reimbursable meal. Most RCCIs use the straight serve system, and as you can see from the tray, it must be one of each component that's being offered. So you're offering grains, fruit, milk, vegetable, and protein. Counting the meals at the point of service. At the center of the counting and claiming system, this is the requirement that must be followed. Reimbursable meals must be counted when they're served to the children at the point of service. Each year, a policy statement is submitted to NDA for approval, and this statement outlines how you will meet the counting and claiming requirements. It generally goes something like, the students will come through the line and there will be a staff member at the end of the line ensuring that the meals are reimbursable and counting the students. If you don't know what this is, you may want to talk to the program side of your staff to find out what your policy statement is to ensure that you're in compliance with it, because we do look for this when we come out to do the administrative reviews. Counting meals in alternate locations. So for whatever reason, sometimes the residents of RCCIs may not be able to come to the primary location point of service, which is usually the dining area or kitchen. Sometimes they have to take meals in solitary confinement, or they may have to take meals on cabin. So when meals are served to those kids in those locations, they just like every other meal have to be counted when they're served to the child in that alternate location. They cannot be pre-counted and then sent. They must be counted when they're served to that child. And just keeping in track with everything else, water has to be available to the child for that meal service, free potable water. in the alternate location. Here is an example from a RCCI of a alternate meal counting count sheet. It has all the necessary areas. It has a date, the number of meals sent out, number of meals delivered to the youth, staff meals if they were served, and then room for clarification at the bottom. Consolidating the claim. The claim for reimbursement must be based on the daily count sheet from the point of service, and that's what we've kind of gone over so far. These count sheets have to form the basis for your claim. Your claim cannot be based on your daily roster, a daily bed count sheet, or any other document that would provide a pre-count but not actual reimbursable meals served. They must come from the count sheet that's used at the point of service. Performance Standard 2, Meal Component Flexibility. According to Memorandum SP 382012, RCCIs can meet their milk requirement in the following way. You can meet that requirement over the week rather than daily if there are potential legitimate safety concerns regarding offering different milk to students. For example, you may offer all students flavored, non-fat milk on some days of the week and unflavored, low-fat milk on the others. So you could serve all chocolate milk on Monday and then 0% chocolate milk on Monday, and then on Tuesday you could serve all 1% unflavored milk, low-fat milk the other day. And you can alternate like that. Comprehensive resource management. So that we're going to look at staff meals. Federal funds are to only be used for meals for qualifying program participants. Staff meals must be paid by the staff member or reimbursed to the nonprofit school food services account. The first thing you have to do is count the staff meals separately, and then you have to determine the cost per meal. You have to have documentation to support all these transactions, such as how you costed out the meal, how many meals were served to staff members, and how much reimbursement was returned to the nonprofit school food services account. There was a memorandum on this, and it's RCCI Memorandum 2016-19, and it explains a little bit more. With comprehensive resource management, I know, having worked with you guys, sometimes you don't have access to your financial information. Sometimes if you're part of a state organization or county organization, that information is kept by other staff within that county or state organization, and you will have to contact them to get certain documents that are required for the administrative review comprehensive resource management sections. Revenue from non-program foods. So just quickly, non-program foods are foods and beverages sold in the participating RCCI other than reimbursable meals, meal supplements that are purchased with funds from the nonprofit school food services account. This could include commissary items, items sold at events hosted by the RCCI, adult visitor meals, and rarely a la carte items. With the revenue from non-program foods, you do have to track that information separately. It has to be accounted for as well. Indirect costs are costs that are incurred for the benefit of multiple programs, functions, or other cost objectives. There must be a documented methodology that accurately allocates indirect costs. Indirect costs usually support administrative overhead functions such as fringe benefits, accounting, payroll, facilities management, utilities. Just some more practical um, examples of this would be janitorial services, things like that. Okay, the civil rights policy and civil rights. Because you're participating in a federal program, you're mandated by the USDA to have a civil rights policy. Your civil rights policy is not the same as your grievance policy. The civil rights policy has to have the following information. First, it has to have steps, which just like your grievance policy, it has to have steps. It has to detail how the kiddos can advance a civil rights complaint. The steps have to outline who they have to talk to, how long it's going to take for that person to make a decision, how they must transmit the information to them, whether the kiddo has to write a letter, whether it has to be face-to-face, and then it has to say what the next step is. So if they, for example, have to turn it into the kitchen manager as the first step. If they don't like the kitchen manager's response to their complaint, who do they take it to next? And that goes on and on until it reaches whatever ultimate authority is within your organization. It also has to include a step for the child to file directly with the USDA in the event that they do not want to deal with your system at all. So there should be some statement in there saying if you would like to file your complaint directly to the USDA, and then give the information for that. It also must have the current USDA non-discrimination statement on it. Along with civil rights, there has to be a civil rights tracking log to track the civil rights complaints you receive for within the food and nutrition services programs. And you have to keep this log each year, a separate log for each year, whether you receive any complaints or not. So this log, generally what I've told people is you can make a folder that has whatever the year is and just note, civil rights complaints for year 2016. Or you could make a spreadsheet that does the same thing, but you have to have one of these. And these are documents that are required for this program, so they are governed by the bookkeeping regulations. They have to be kept for 3 years. The public release. RCCIs must have a public release which may appear on their website or as part of an intake program materials. It could also be part of a resident's or parent's handbook. It has to have the following information in it. You have to notify the public that you're participating in the food and nutrition programs. You have to indicate which programs you're participating in, and it must state that the meals will be served free to residents at the facility. It also must contain the USDA non-discrimination policy. And here there's an example of a well-written one. Your wellness policy and food is a reward. So in a lot of RCCIs, the residents are on some type of level system where as their behavior improves or as their compliance improves, they gain extra privileges. Within the wellness policy itself, it states that food cannot be used as a reward. So if any part of your level system includes increased access to food, it's not compliant with the wellness policy. We have a sample RCCI wellness policy posted, and I posted the link to it. I've also posted the link here to the Nevada Wellness Policy website where you can see all the other information. But these are 2 resources for you to help you get your wellness policy into compliance. Now we'll take any questions. I see one from Daisy Diaz. Do you have an income statement template that we can use, or must we create our own? We do have templates, and I can send them to you.